Andrea, we've had national reporters on, two of them of the bigger names, and both have said Clemson looks like they're national champion this year. Are they the best team in college football, and is there anybody even close to them in the ACC?
Well, I guess we'll find out, right? I feel like it's more wide open than ever, quite honestly, when you look at who may win a national championship this year. I think the last couple of seasons, we went into the year thinking, like last year, Ohio State's got the most talent. They deserve to be number one. The year before that, Michigan, with everybody they had coming back. The couple of years before that, Georgia, Alabama, right? It always felt like, okay, the inevitable conclusion is going to be X. I don't feel that way about this season. When you look at who Clemson has coming back, when you look at Texas with Arch Manning and all the hype around them, when you look at Georgia, who has been there, done that, Penn State, can they get over the hump, right? That's just four teams right now. But you could also legitimately point out questions about all of those teams where you can say, never mind, they're not going to win a national championship. So I think that's what's going to make the season so fun is it feels like there are more teams in contention. And certainly I would put Clemson in the mix for a team that is capable of winning a national championship. And the conversations I've had with Dabo Swinney and some of the players, they felt like they needed that playoff experience from a year ago to just remind them that, oh, yeah, we can do this. Because it had been a few years since Clemson had made a playoff, as you guys know. As far as their status in the ACC, I think they're the prohibitive favorite for a reason. When you look at the experience they have coming back, the talent they have coming back, the changes they made with Tom Allen now as the defensive coordinator to try and harness what they have in that group, try and get them to be as aggressive as we remember them being under Brett Venables when they made playoff appearances. I've had a debate with my colleague David Hale about whether they should be the overwhelming favorite. But I do think they are. I think there's some teams that can compete with them in the conference, whether it's Miami, Louisville, SMU, Georgia Tech. Those would be my preseason top five ACC teams, not in that order. But I do think Clemson will win the ACC.
Is there a sleeper in the league? Maybe somebody like, Syracuse last year, for instance, is a program that, they won 9 games, got to a 10th with a bowl game. I'm not suggesting they're the sleeper this year, given their schedule. We'll get to Syracuse in a second. But is there a team that you could see, making a big jump from last year to this year, not necessarily competing with Clemson for the title, but is there an intriguing option that's, considered a middle of the pack team that you think might rise above the ashes?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of teams, and again, I'm just going to put some asterisks by their names because I don't think people would necessarily call them a dark horse, right? Duke and the job that they've done over the last couple of years, whether it was Mike Elko or what Manny Diaz in year one, is a team that I think has the potential to be even better than they have been, over an 8 or 9 win team. When you look at how much money they spent on their quarterback, Darian Menson, the transfer portal, $4 million, I think he's one of the highest paid, if not the highest paid players in the entire country. And they felt like having a dynamic playmaker at that position was what held them back as a team last year. They feel really good about what he's bringing to the table. And also year two in that defense with what Manny Diaz likes to do. They've got an All-American and Chandler Rivers in their secondary. They've got some terrific playmakers up front. So Duke is a team that I'm paying attention to. Pitt is another team that I think will be better this year. We saw them start off hot. A lot of that was luck, though. Some of the come from behind wins that they had. I think everyone remembers or probably has tried to forget the Syracuse game. But then afterwards, they kind of fell off a cliff a little bit, but it feels as if, based on the conversations I've had, there is a renewed focus. And when you look at how many preseason All-Americans they have, right behind Clemson with Des Reed and Kyle Lewis, they're coming back for them on defense. So that's a team to pay attention to. And guys, I've got a sneaky feeling about NC State. This is a team, when you don't talk good about them, tends to play better, and not anyone's really paying attention to NC State. It was a 6-7 year, high expectations a year ago. I like C.J. Bailey at quarterback. I like the changes that Dave Doran made with both of his coordinators, and so that's a team, if they can handle a tough week one game, I think can have the potential and or possibility of making some noise in the conference. So those are 3 teams that I'm keeping an eye on that I wouldn't necessarily call a sleeper because they've been there, done that recently in terms of winning 8 or 9 or 10 games, but certainly I feel like those are 3 teams that are going to be better this year.
Well, good news for Syracuse is 2 of those sleepers and all of the teams you said that will contend with Clemson to win the conference are on their schedule this year. What do you make of Syracuse's schedule?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the schedule part of it, right? Because so much in trying to predict some of the dark horse candidates is when you look at a schedule. And we sit here and try and project, right? That's how we come up with what our preseason rank is going to be, who we think is going to win the conference. And last year, yes, the schedule fell nicely for both Syracuse and SMU, which went 8-0 in ACC play. If there's a team that has a more favorable schedule than they have in the past this year, it's Georgia Tech. And that's another team to kind of keep an eye on, although, again, wouldn't necessarily call them a dark horse because there are high expectations on them. But for Syracuse, yeah, there's no doubt that the schedule gets tougher, right? And it's not just those ACC teams. Obviously, opening against Tennessee, a team that made the playoff a year ago. Obviously, Notre Dame is on the schedule, right? And now we mentioned all of these teams that were bowl teams a year ago in the conference, and then North Carolina and Bill Belichick, right, where there's going to be a lot of hype surrounding that team. So it's hard for me to believe that this team, given all the turnover that they've had at so many key positions, right, and productive positions for them a year ago, is going to be able to match or exceed the win total, given how much more difficult the schedule is. Now, that doesn't mean we won't see progress. This happens sometimes where a team is better, but it might not be reflective in the win-loss column because the schedule is so much harder. And when I asked Fran Brown about that, he's like, who cares? Only whiners complain about a schedule, right? Like, we've got to go out there and win. And he's absolutely right. It's not like when he was at Georgia, anyone's complaining about the gauntlet they had to play every year in the SEC. That's the type of mentality that he wants to bring to Syracuse. But I think it's kind of early in where this program is to sit here and say, oh, yeah, they won't be able to miss a beat after losing the types of players that they had from a year ago. I still think there needs to be some time to build that foundation and depth where you can be like, all right, it's not a rebuild, it's a reload type year, and schedule certainly isn't going to do them many favors.
Yeah, and the biggest loss, of course, was at the quarterback position, and they break in a new quarterback now in Steve Angeli, the transfer from Notre Dame, and a very difficult opponent tomorrow in Tennessee, nationally ranked opponent coming in with an elite defense. What do you make of Steve Angeli? What kind of chances do you give Syracuse in this opener against a really good Tennessee team?
Well, the good news is Steve Angeli comes from a Power 4 program in which he has, I don't want to say faced the fire, but that's a terrible metaphor, but you guys know what I mean. He's been in some situations where he's had to perform. I mean, he had to go in there against Penn State in the semifinal a year ago when Riley Leonard went down. And in fact, like that game, when he went into the portal, Fran Brown specifically told me when I asked him about it, when we saw him in Charlotte, that game was what was kind of like, well, yeah, it's a no-brainer when someone from Notre Dame is going to the portal. You want to take a look at him. Ties to New Jersey, as you guys know, so important to Fran. But also what he was able to do, having to come in there cold and get into a game to help Notre Dame as they were trying to make it to a national championship game. So Steve Angeli's got that type of experience that certainly I think will help. But for me, this game is going to come down to, you mentioned Tennessee and the terrific defense, and also their offensive line, right? If you're playing anybody from the SEC, you know that they're going to be big up front on the offensive and defensive lines. And so how Syracuse is going to be able to contend with that there and make sure they're doing everything they can to not just protect Steve, but also open up some of those running lanes for Yasin Willis so that they can have some balance on offense, because the last thing they're going to want to do against a team like Tennessee is become one-dimensional. That's exactly what happened to NC State last year in their opener against Tennessee, and they had an injury, so things just fell apart for them really quickly, but they absolutely got manhandled up front in that game. So that's why I know it's a cliche, right? Because everyone says you got to win up front to be able to win games. For me, in this game in particular, because of the quality of the opponent that they're facing and what we've seen from Tennessee and the way they've built that program, they've got to be able to win the line of scrimmage. If they can do that, then they'll give them a chance to win this game. Tennessee's got some transition themselves at the quarterback position, right? And so that's something that certainly I think Syracuse can try and play into their advantage. And Fran Bound's familiar with Tennessee from his time spent at Georgia, so I expect him to have something to bring to the table in terms of a game plan, even though personnel might be different. The coaching staff is the same, and so there'll be familiarity there in terms of things that they like to do, both on offense and defense. But, you asked me what chance do I give them. Everyone's got a chance going into any game, right? I mean, this is week one. Everyone starts out fresh. I think Tennessee is favored for a reason. What percentage would I give it? 20% chance for Syracuse. How about that?
That's funny. That's exactly the number I had in my head.
There you go.
Yeah,
telepathy right here.
Yeah, I love it. Great insight, Andrea. Thanks so much. We know you got to run. We appreciate the time. Enjoy the start of the college football season, and hopefully we can talk again down the road.
All right. Appreciate it, fellas. Thanks for having me.
All right. Andrea Adelson from ESPN. We'll take a timeout. The SU Tennessee talk continues on the other side. We're back after this on ESPN Radio.